everyone, and welcome back to my channel Sew and Crafted. If you're new to this channel, then a big welcome to you. If you like what you see at the end of it, thumb it up. Now in this tutorial we're going to be looking at the must-have essential tools for your sewing corner. So if you've just started out or you're getting started out and you're a little bit confused, you're not quite sure what you need and what is required, then you hit the right thumbnail to get you to this point, because through this tutorial I'm going to take you through the basic essential tools that you need. This tutorial is part 1 of 3 sessions that I'm going to do, but stay tuned to the end of the video as I will actually tell you what the other 2 will consist of. So let's not delay, let's jump straight into this and get started. So one of the essential tools to have for your sewing corner alongside your sewing machine is good quality scissors. Now your scissors need to be able to aimlessly cut through your fabric without nicking it in any way. You know you got good quality scissors when you can hear that crunch as you cut through the fabric. Now I've had these scissors for about 5 years and I've never had to sharpen them. I don't even use them for cutting threads. So do look after your scissors and more importantly, keep them locked away. Do not allow anybody to use your scissors to cut any other material apart from your fabric. But do have a second edition pair of scissors that you can use to cut any other material. Another useful cutting tool to have in your sewing corner is Rotary Cutter. They're very easy to use, very durable, and I find that I use them and I'm actually doing my quilting, cutting out squares and triangles. Now this one actually came with 5 additional blades, and on this one you can see the decorative blade, which gives a lovely finish to your fabric and also cleans up any frays on the edge of your fabric. So if you don't have an overlocker or a serger, then this is the tool to use for that purpose. Now the only thing about these blades, the drawback is that they do blunt quite quickly. Using a fine sandpaper sheet will keep your blades sharp and lasting for longer. Another essential tool for your sewing corners, and these are a must, are seam rippers or stitch removers. As a beginner you will be needing them as you will make mistakes. These rippers and stitch removers come in various sizes. The small ones are used for removing stitches and the larger one I use for ripping seams. Now you can never have too many of these. I always seem to lose mine when I need them. Now let's look at the components of the seam ripper. You have the long pointed tip on the left hand side, the red ball point short tip, and then you have the blade which is in the curve of the seam ripper. Now to use this to remove stitches, you take the long pointed tip and push it through the stitch on the fabric and pull it through. Keep doing that until you get to where you've made your mistake. When you turn it on the other side, you'll have some loose thread, so all you need to do is just remove those. To rip a seam, do exactly the same thing as removing the stitches, but you're only going to do a small amount of this. Then with the red ball pointed short tip, you're going to place it in between the seam and the blade should be in contact with the thread, and then just push to start ripping your seam, and keep doing that. You'll actually hear it ripping through it, so keep doing that until you get to the end of where you need to rip. If you turn it over, you have some thread there, it's actually loose. Remove that and your seam is now ripped. Snipping tools or snipping scissors are another must for your sewing corner. These will actually help to snip off trailing threads or make notches into fabrics or projects that you are doing. Notches are indicated by either a short black line or little triangles. You just need to make a little snip where you see those icons, and then with your other garment that you have, which you've made a notch in, you will match the two together to ensure that they are aligned. They also make light work in actually snipping off trailing threads from your fabric after hand sewing or machine sewing. Next for your sewing corners are measuring tapes and rulers. I have a selection of these, especially with the measuring tape. Now tapes normally come in two measurements, inches and centimeters. Some sewers, like myself, work in inches. They are handy for measuring body parts or the length of fabric and garment. I also have my quilting ruler. As much as it looks busy, it's a great ruler to have, and I normally use it in projects of cutting my squares and triangles prior to stitching them up. I've also got a 60 centimeter ruler, and this is a great one for measuring fabric that are of length, or even if you're making a skirt, that you can actually measure the length of the skirt you require it to be. I've also got this little small school ruler, which I will tend to use when using my rotary cutter or doing smaller projects. Now this gauge ruler is a fantastic tool to have. What it allows you to do is to be able, when you turn up your hem, that you have the same measurement right across your fabric. So fold your fabric to the required depth that you require the hem to be. Take the red marker and push it up to the edge of the fabric, and then move the gauge marker across the fabric and adjusting your hem line if it's incorrect and doesn't measure the same as the gauge ruler. Another tool required for your sewing corner are a selection of pins or clips to hold your fabrics together and in place. These clips, I love these clips. They came as a pack of 50 and are really good at holding your fabric in place. Now I generally use them mostly in quilting, holding my squares or triangle in place prior to stitching for easy removal from the fabric while stitching. These pins are very long and sturdy and can gather a hold on your fabric. Sewing needles is a must to have. After all, you won't be machine stitching all the time. So do have a selection of needles. These ones came in different sizes and different thickness, but the one thing I love about this needle is the big eyelet for easy threading. A pin cushion is also a must to be able to store your pins and your needles. I will actually show you how I made this in another video, and this can be a part of your first project as a beginner. Sewing needles. Don't rely on the spare ones you get with your machine. Invest in a quantity of selection of universal needles. Now the general everyday needle that you would use for most of your sewing would be 90/14. However, there are different types of needles for different types of fabrics or for different projects. You've got jeans for heavy fabric, you have stretch for lycra or delicates, ballpoint for knit fabrics. These are some of the needles that you will use in the future, so there's no need to go out and get these straight away. But as your skills and confidence grow, you'll find yourself using different types of fabrics for your projects, so it's good to have them in your corner ready. There are a multitude of different types of threads out there on the market. You have threads for bobbin, you have cotton thread, you have polyester thread. Most sewers tend to use polyester threads for their sewing, but there isn't a range of threads out there. You also have threads for embroidery. You have silk threads. It can be confusing as to what type of threads you need, but just have a quantity of different colour threads for the different colour fabrics you will use. The bobbins that you get with your machines are definitely not enough, so do invest in some more bobbins for your threads. As you start to sew, you're going to be using different colours for different fabrics for your project, so do have a quantity of bobbins. These bobbins were a bargain buy, 50 bobbins and split in two cases, so 25 bobbin in each case. Do ensure that the bobbin you buy fits your machine. Now cutting mats could also be another daunting thing to think about which one you buy. They come in various sizes. The one you see here is 23/16. This generally has my sewing machine sitting on it most of the time, but the one that I have for cutting out on is an A1. You also got an A2, A4,
A3, A5. I would generally say just go out and get either an A2 or an A3 to start off with. Also, depending on the measurements you want to work in, you can get them in inches, you can get them in centimeters, or they actually come as a combo. And do ensure that they are self-healing, because you will be doing a lot of cutting on them, especially if you're using the rotary cutter. An iron is another must-have tool for your sewing corner. This is so that you can press your seams flat prior to stitching on your sewing machine, or pressing your fabric for a clean finish. I've had this travel iron for many years. It's not a steam iron, it's a dry iron, but it does have a little water tank that I can fill it with water, and if I need to dampen the fabric, I can do so. Now, there are many little mini irons out there in the market. You don't generally need to go out and buy an iron. Your household iron will do the job quite nicely for any projects that you are doing. But if you do go out and invest in one of these little mini travel iron, I would actually say get one that actually steams. The dry iron is actually perfect, but sometimes if you're ironing heavy fabric like jeans, then you might want a little steam on there to get it as flat as possible. Alongside your iron, you'll also need an ironing mat. Now, this ironing mat I actually made using an A5 cutting mat, some wadding, and of course some fabric. But I will show you how I made that along with this pin cushion in another video. The last essential tool for your sewing corner are marking chalks or erasable pens. Now, these tools are very good for beginners, especially if you're struggling to stitch or cut in a straight line. You can mark out the area that you need to stitch or cut to help guide you. These chalk markers, when used, will need water to be removed. However, the pen just requires using a heat from an iron. Also, you can also use the last bits of your soap bar as marking tools as well. Will work out a lot cheaper, and you probably have a lot more of them. To demonstrate that these are removable or invisible, I will mark out some lines, starting with the chalk, then the soap bar, and last of all the erasable pens. Now, these pens were also a good bargain buy, and they come in different colours depending on the fabric you're going to use. Now, the pens do take a little while for it to show up, but when it does, it is very good. Using my ironing mat, and I would suggest that you do not iron directly onto your cutting mat, as you will destroy it. I'm going to demonstrate that the 5 lines are erasable with an iron. However, I would suggest that you do not put any type of heat on the chalks, as this may imprint onto the fabric. So with the iron, I'm just going to go over the lines once, and as you can see, the lines have disappeared. Now, there is a slight residue from the soap due to double marking the lines.
So everyone, that is some of the basic essential tools that you need for your sewing corner, especially if you're starting out. Not everything you need to go out there and buy straight away, but those ones I've shown you today, I think are the ones that will get you started. Now, at the beginning of the tutorial, I did say that I will share with you other sessions that I will do. So now in session 2, we're going to be looking at using a sewing machine, which will actually consist of
to top stitch, do single hem, do double hem, blind hemming, inserting a zip, patchwork, applique are some of the things that we will look at in session 2. In session 3, we'll also look at making a tote boxed bottom bag.
If you've liked what you've seen today, then thumb it up. Do subscribe, hit the bell notification that you can get future videos as they're uploaded. Thanks for watching. Bye for now. Stay safe, and I'll see you in my next video.